Hey now, today we're going to take a look at Xayah, Legends of a Drift System from Far Off Games. Now, Xayah has been a bit of a cult hit in the past year. It was on Kickstarter and it made a lot of money. It made almost 350 grand, but more than that, there's a lot of projects that make a lot of money on Kickstarter, but end up to be not all that special quality-wise. But Xayah, from the very beginning, has been very critically acclaimed. People have loved even early versions of it. Even before it got to retail, it was in Kickstarter backers' hands for at least a couple of months, and more buzz began to build about how good of a quality game that it was, which is a bit of a rarity coming from Kickstarter. Now, what is the game about? It is billed as a sandbox game, which, if you think of video games that are sandbox games like Grand Theft Auto and Assassin's Creed, this is a very different game from that thematically, but the concept is mostly the same. You're trying to win the game, but how you go about doing it can be drastically different from game to game. This takes place in a far-off galaxy. It's called a drift system called Xayah. That's like the star, the sun of this system. And how the board is laid out constantly changes, and what you can do to earn fame points, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. You can be a smuggler, you can be a legitimate merchant, you can be a pirate killing the other players, you can just try to buy your way to victory, getting as much money as possible, completing as many missions as possible, going for these special titles which are like achievements that all the players can hunt for, even helping other players can get you fame points. Even rolling a d20 and getting a 20 can get you fame points. So there's a lot of different routes to victory, there's a lot of different variety in the game, and there's some pretty cool components, I'll go ahead and say right now. Does that make it a good, solid game? Let's take a brief look at how it's played, because there's a lot of stuff to the game. I don't want to spend too much time on it, just to give you a taste for what it's like. Then we'll come back, and I'll give you my final opinion. Okay, I'm going to give you a very brief run-through of Xayah, Legends of a Drift System. And I say brief because there's a lot of little details to this game, and I can't really go over everything, and we'll be here for an hour. I just want to give you a quick run-through to give you a taste of what it's like. The theme of the game is that you are a galactic explorer, and you are trying to make a name for yourself. This is represented in game terms with fame points, which are essentially victory points. You will decide at the beginning of the game, noting it on the fame track here, how many points you want to play to. You have a little marker here that you set, and whoever gets to that amount of points first is the winner immediately. But there are many different things you can do in order to get fame points. This is a sandbox game. You can destroy other players to get fame points. You can pick up and deliver, pick up goods somewhere, or mine or harvest them, and then sell them for profit and therefore get fame points and money. You can buy victory points. If you get enough money, you can start buying victory points so long as it's not the last victory point that you buy. You can explore. The more you explore and get these little exploration tokens, the more you increase your odds of getting fame points. If you roll a natural 20 in the game on the d20, which is used for a lot of different things, you will score a fame point because you are lucky. Even if another player needs your help, if they're stranded, whether they like your help or not, you can help them. They can't refuse, and you get fame points. That's kind of how this game works. So let's take a step back and do how this game is set up. Each player is going to get a different ship. As part of getting that ship, you get a player board, a special ability card, and a pretty cool miniature. This game has, I think, something like 21 different miniatures, which they're pretty cool. They're pretty intricate. They're all pre-painted. I like them quite a bit. And there's a ship for there's a miniature for every ship that you have. Now on your shipboard here, we'll take a look at another one of what they call the Tier 1 ships. These are the ships that you'll start the game with, each player. They're all the same in some ways, but different. So they all have 4 armed and disarmed spaces. You'll keep track of those with these little cylinders here. And armed means that you can therefore use those markers to activate different pieces of your ship. The pieces of your ship you can activate are things like this. You have different little outfits that you can buy at the beginning of the game. Every player has 3,000 credits to use, or during the course of the game. You'll actually fit these into your ship Tetris style, and so long as you can, they'll be considered part of your ship. You can use your arms markers to activate those nodes, and there's shields, which are the blue ones here. There are missiles. There are the ones I just showed you before that are orange are blasters. And of course engines, which everyone should get because those are the main method that you have of moving. So you can use those armed markers to do that. You'll also have a different marker down here to keep track of energy. Energy is what you need for using some special abilities, but also at the end of your turn, if you want to rearm those markers you use, you need to go ahead and spend energy to do that. You'll also have on your player board a spot for impulse power. It's a token that you use to keep track of whether you've used your impulse for the turn. Impulse just lets you move whatever your impulse rating is. So for the little puddle jumper here, you get to move 4 hexes on the game board. You also, if you ever run out of energy completely, you're considered stranded, and in addition to only being able to take minor actions, you can only use impulse power to move once per turn, of course. So let's take a look at some of the special abilities. For instance, the puddle jumper here, you can use your special ability once per turn. He is actually able, I'll see if I can focus in on that. The puddle jumper is actually able to scoop out energy from the, I don't know if atmosphere is the right word, but the space if he rolls a d20. Then you just flip the card over. So on a roll of d20, you may get nothing, but then you may also get varying degrees of energy as is depicted there. And that's how most of the special abilities will work, and most things in the game work, as a matter of fact. You're going to be rolling randomly on a d20 to see if you actually get something cool. And you can only do that once per turn. The only other thing of note on the player board, well, first off, I suppose you're wondering what these are. These are actually the money in the game. Really cool metal coins representing money, and you have blue 5s over there as well. But the other thing of note is a money-shaped spot in the top of the board, which is where you keep track of bounties. If you do illegal activities in this game, like passing through interplanetary shields without permission, or shooting or destroying other players, I should say, you earn a bounty, which means you have to put a 1,000 credit chip up in the corner. That's not yours. That's the money someone else gets for destroying your ass when you become an outlaw and they blow you up. So that's kind of the game. Now, other things that you can use your cargo ship for, other than putting outfits in there, you can actually hold cargo cubes, which are all of these different little colored cubes over here. They don't really have any distinction between them other than their color, but certain planets will let you buy cubes of a color and sell other types of cubes there. And that's where the pick up and deliver part comes in. If you want to sell cubes, you'll pick them up, put them into your cargo hold, and then move and sell them somewhere else and get the money and the fame points, remember. But if at any point you take damage, you're going to have to take these little damage markers to put them into the hull, or put them into your ship in the hull, I guess. And if they go into whatever spot they go into, if there's cargo that's already there, so let's say that if I had these little cargo cubes here, and let's say I had one of these outfits, just some blasters, I can start filling up the empty spots, but whenever I'm forced to fill up some of the spots that already have something in it. If it's cargo, it gets jettisoned out into space. Or if it's the control nodes, these little orange spots that I have to activate with my armed markers, I'm no longer able to use them until I repair my ship. You can't repair your ship or get your energy back until you land on one of the planets on the game board, which on these here are those places that are surrounded by shields of various colors. So that's a very quick run through of what your player boards are and what they can do in the different ships. And as you go through the rest of the game, you can actually get bigger and better ships. So the tier 2 ships are these green ones here. And these, you'll notice it has way more cargo space, more energy. The impulse doesn't really vary. They cost 5,000 credits. You can only buy them when you're on a planet. And whenever you buy a new ship, you get the special ability of the card that comes with it, but you also get to keep the special abilities of the previous ships that you had purchased. So it's pretty cool because that just means you're basically retrofitting your new ship with your old ship's abilities. Here's an example of a tier 3 ship, which is the strongest ship in the game. That has a lot of cargo space, tons of energy, and this one actually has a really cool special ability that lets it replicate other ships' abilities, but that's neither here nor there. Also, I should say, you get a victory point for buying a ship. Like I said, you get victory points for a lot of different things in this game. Other little bits of setup, obviously you have the board. Now, I kind of put a lot of tiles out here, but you would only start with the number of randomly drawn tiles equal to the number of players in the game. And there's a special way that you hook all the tiles up together. There's little markers around the edges of the tiles. Whenever you explore that edge, you'll match it up with the tile that you're on as best as you can. And there's a lot of different tiles, and they all have different special, we'll call them terrain abilities or space abilities, I guess you could say. So for instance, if we take a look at some of these ones I have here, this is a typical example of a planet. This is actually a lawful planet. Anytime you see a blue shield, or when it actually says lawful, that's a lawful planet. Now, for any planet, if you try to go through its shield, so let's say I was right here, that's actually an enforcer, but let's say I was right here and I just tried to go right onto the planet with my movement. Well, a couple things are going to happen. First off, you need to make a roll. Anytime that you have to do any kind of dangerous terrain, you have to make a d20 roll. And in the case of a planet, if you roll a 1 through 10, you basically smash into their shields and take a bunch of damage that you have to immediately try to use your shields to try to counter if you have shields. And everything in this game is die roll. So if someone attacks you, they roll dice. If you have to defend, you roll dice depending on what outfit you have in your ship. But also, if you try to cross planetary shields, and whether you're successful or not, you become an outlaw, unless you roll really high. You have to roll like an 18 through 20 to not become an outlaw. If you become an outlaw, you're fair game for the other players to destroy, and you're not able to go through the legal entrances of any planets except for the bad planets and the neutral planets. So that was an example of a lawful planet, and as you can see on here, a few different little terrain features, and some of these cross over to other tiles of the board as well. Here, the question marks are exploration tokens. Exploration tokens are these little things here that you can pick them up as a minor action as you're moving around the board, and they may have nothing, which this X symbolizes, or they may have 1,000 credits or a fame point. These spots here, which look like upside down blue and reddish orange triangles, are mission spots, and these are just spawn points. You spawn at the point closest to you at the start of the game. If you ever die and blow up, you respawn you roll a d20 and go to the closest spot. But anyways, this is a mission spot. When you go to a mission spot, if you're just passing through it, you can take a free mission card. You'll draw the top 3 mission cards, pick the one you like, and then keep it in front of you. And you can only have one active mission at a time, but you can dump an active mission essentially whenever you want. And some of them are just things like you have research here. And it will list the different requirements for the research. There's a little bit of flavor text up here. This one says you have to fly to the Azure system. And then go to the mission spot on that planet and you'll start the mission. This one says collect data by rolling a d20. So you'll go there, research, roll a d20, and then deliver the data to Kemplar 2, and you'll have to roll to see exactly how well that works for you. Some of them are illegal missions, like you have Assassin. This one makes you, the player on your left, you have to find and destroy their ship. And for all the missions, you'll get a fame point, but you also may get a lot of money as well. Some of them are just like shuttling passengers, things like that. Now, one thing, as long as we're talking about cards, I'll go ahead and talk about the title cards. Whenever you get to, I think it's every 3rd space on the board, whenever one of the player's markers crosses a 3rd space, one of these titles comes into play, and these are something that all the players will vie for. So Collector here says that without making a purchase from Smuggler's Den, have at least one of each of the 5 types of cargo cubes in your hold. If you're able to be the first person to do this, you get 3 fame points, and you get to keep the card as a special ability. This one says you get 1,000 credits whenever you sell all cargo cubes in your hold, an extra 1,000 credits. So these are just like cool things that you can vie for against the other players, and it's just another way for you to get fame points, as with so many of the other things in this game. Going back to talking about some of the different features of the planets, here's the example of a neutral planet. And on this one, it has all the different features I showed you already. And I'll show you here, this is the getting goods. So over here, you can buy 2 of the blue goods. You get 2 of them for 1,000 credits. And you can do this as many times as you want. That's how actions kind of work in this game. Or you can sell orange cubes for 1,000. So that's how it works with all the planets. You're always buying, you can buy one type of thing and sell another type of thing. So you want to try to get a trade route going if that's the way that you want to win the game. There are also 2 gates in the stack of randomized tiles. Gates, first off, the first time anyone uses a gate, they gain a fame point. That's another way you get fame points. And that lets you shuttle between, once both gates are out, you can use one of your movement to go between the 2 gates. And there's a mission point there as well. Then you have hazardous terrain like debris here. Debris is nasty because every time you enter one of the yellow squares with your ship, you may explode on a d20 roll of 1 through 3, or nothing happens for the other rolls. Also, if you land on this space, you get to salvage, which has the same odds. 1 through 3, you explode. 4 through 20, you actually get to take a black cube. Another hazardous one, we have asteroid fields. Same, it's a little bit better because in this case, on a roll of 1 through 10, you just take that much damage, and you may mitigate that with your shields. But 11 through 20, you get an orange cube, and that happens whenever you move through a new field. Let's see. Then we have, here's an example of a busted gate. There's only one of these, the Tigress gate, does not connect to any of the other 2 gates. You still get a fame point for using it first, But on a roll of 1 through 19, when you activate it, you go to that spawn point. On a 20, you get to go wherever you want, in addition to getting the victory point for rolling a 20. The Nebula sucks out energy. You won't take damage from it when you roll, but if you roll a 1 through 10, you lose that much energy. 11 through 20, you get a purple cube. Again, you've got to be on the right spot to do so. And I think the final one that I'm going to show, I'll show you two more. One is, here's an example of an illegal planet. This is an outlaw planet. The Smuggler's Den, surrounded by asteroid fields. But just for going into this planet's legal entrance, whether you go through the shields or through the legal entrance, you become an outlaw because you're consorting with criminals. This one's cool because you can buy any 2 of the cubes for 1,000 credits. And the last one I'll show you is Zaya herself, the sun of this system. If you blind jump into this area, you are going to explode, so don't do that. Now, I mentioned blind jumping, and here's how that kind of works. So you'll be moving your shuttle around, and obviously, at some point, new tiles are going to have to come out, because you only start the game with anywhere from 3 to 5 of the tiles, depending on the number of players. You have an option now. You can spend an energy, and if you spend an energy, you get to take the next tile off the stack and very carefully place it down, depending on how the symbols line up. Therefore, you know exactly what you can possibly move into. Or you can just say, to heck with it, and you spend an energy, or I'm sorry, you don't spend an energy, and just continue whatever movement you are currently on onto that tile, randomly draw one, matching it up, and hoping that you don't explode. So it's risky, but if you don't want to spend the energy and you want to do things fast, that's the way to do it. And, oh boy, there's a lot of different things I could cover, but essentially, that's the whole game. I mean, you decide how you want to play the game. You can smuggle, you can trade goods, you can destroy the other players, and so on and so forth. Attacks just mean you have to be either adjacent if you have blasters, or if you have missiles, you just go 2 to 6 spaces away, target them, roll the dice, and so on. You can only enter the business phase of your turn. There's the action phase and there's the business phase. If you're on a planet, that's when you get to recharge all of your energy, rearm all your markers for free, and then you can do all fun stuff like and then there's a status phase that lets you do that stuff too. But you can sell goods. You can, sell goods is the action phase. But you can sell your outfits. You can buy new outfits. You can buy a new ship. You can, it's just the phase that you get to do, like the benefits for landing on a planet. When you're out in the middle of nowhere, you're kind of on your own. Now, I mentioned before, if someone gets stranded, if they run out of energy, you might actually be able to save them. If someone is stranded, you get to immediately transfer 2 energy to them. You gain a fame point, and then they can't refuse you. Then they get the energy for doing so. The last thing I guess I'll talk about is just there's NPCs that are in the game, and also I'll show you some of their ships and some of the other ships that may pop up as well. So you have 3 different NPCs that come in at least the retail version of the game. Sorry, you have the Scoundrel, the Merchant, and the Enforcer. Now, the Scoundrel and the Enforcer are basically 2 sides of the same coin. The Scoundrel is going to spawn on Loathe, which is one of the evil planets of the game, and is going to move around and try to target any of the innocent non-outlaw ships and just try to make their lives miserable. But and keep gaining bounty, and that means he makes them sort of a low-hanging fruit for the other players, because the other players can come over and just like shoot the crap out of him and gain the money for destroying him. The other side of that coin is the Enforcer, who's like the cop of the galaxy, who is going to try to catch. Here, I'll show you the ships as I'm doing that. So here is the Scoundrel ship, and then the Enforcer ship is this Blue Angels looking fella here, who's going to try to catch any outlaw who comes his way. And usually in every game, there's at least one person who decides to go the outlaw route. The neutral party in all of this is the Merchant. And the Merchant has a trade route. Whenever the second route in his trade route comes out, he basically moves from spot to spot, gathering goods and making himself, or basically collecting credits and making himself a lush hanging fruit for pirates to destroy and take all of the money from. Some of the other ships that you can get during the game, I'll just show you some of these. Here is the Ghost Walker ship, one of the starting ships I showed you before. Here's the Gaiden, which is one of the middle tier, the second tier ships. So the miniatures get bigger and bigger as you go. Here's that Nightshade, which is like one of the tier 3 ships. So lots and lots of different really cool miniatures in this game. It's probably one of the best things about this game. And that is a very, very quick summation of Xayah. You're running around the galaxy doing whatever you want in order to make yourself the most notorious pirate slash trader slash explorer slash noble force in the galaxy. Now, let's get to my final thoughts. Okay, first off, components in Xayah are almost unimpeachable. They're fantastic. And I really can't think of anything major to say that I don't like about them. All the little ships are awesome. I mean, I've heard people complain that they're not that good a paint job on them. These people are usually miniatures nerds who have way too much time on their hands to, pick apart and pick out every little bad detail about every miniature that they come across. For board game miniatures, these are awesome. Really, really cool looking. And the fact that they're even there, that they're all different, and they all have, different molds, and the better ships are bigger, and they stand out more, and they look cooler when you have them to the table. I could see a lesser board game, a designer or publisher that was looking to save money and cut corners. I could easily see them having the exact same ship model for the entire game. There's just have there just be 5 different models in the game, and you just change out the board, your player board, every time you get a new ship, and just make sure that it matches your color. I could have easily seen them going this route, but they didn't. They actually gave you these awesome miniatures for every ship in the game, and that is amazing. And because of that, I actually regret that I didn't actually back this on Kickstarter, because there was a couple of exclusive miniatures. But actually, aside from that, this is mostly the same as the Kickstarter version. This is the retail version, and it's mostly the same as the Kickstarter version, which is still pretty amazing, because other components that are great in the game. The money, these like metal coins, which usually, in order to get metal coins for your board games, you'd have to back a whole other separate Kickstarter project and then pimp out your games with them. This one comes in the box, and they're great. It's the first thing everyone notices. People love clinking them together. They look awesome. So, I mean, it seems like such a shallow thing to say, but that really improves the game together with the miniatures. Even the cubes look really cool. I mean, they're just plastic cubes, but I think if they were wood, they just wouldn't fit this game as well. So the fact that they have all these different colors are great. The only complaint that I really have as far as the presentation of the game is the graphic design of the ship boards, the player boards, and it just looks very plain and boring. It doesn't look really high-tech and sleek. I compare it to games that also have a sci-fi theme, like, let's say, Among the Stars and New Dawn, which just look really clean. I mean, the graphic design on those games have some issues, but everything looks really sleek and futuristic. This one looks a little old-fashioned with how the graphic design is laid out. But the artwork of the actual ships on the player boards is pretty cool, so I can't really complain about that. But that's my little nitpick there. Everything else as far as components looks great. The tiles look good. Everything is very clear and laid out easily. This doesn't look too muddled. I've played other games in recent memory that used tiles and hexes, and it just looks terrible. It looks muddy. It's hard to tell what's what. You don't have that problem with this game. Everything is very clear. So components, great. Theme, well, there's not really a story to this game. We're all kind of just generic traders and merchants and smugglers going around this galaxy. But it does feel thematic to me. It feels thematic when I'm chasing people down and shooting them, or escaping from other people that are trying to shoot me, and I'm going from planet to planet and going through the planetary shields. I'm picking up passengers. All of it really immerses me in this world, which is really saying something, because there's a lot of games that I call very thematic, but then again, those games are giving you a story and giving you characters and sort of doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you. This game is really about using your imagination, but together with solid thematic mechanics, and they really integrate well together. Does it sound like I really like this game? I really like this game. I'll just go ahead and say that right now. So let's jump right into the gameplay. I mentioned in the beginning about how this is a sandbox game, and I thought that people might be exaggerating that a bit. No, they're really not. That is really what this game, that's like the pillar that holds this game up, is the fact that you can literally do whatever you want to get those fame points. Sometimes you'll be in situations where you're like, well, I don't really want to rush over to that gate and activate it just to get a fame point. It doesn't really make sense because I'm trying to do this merchant thing, but that's an easy point to get. I can't really turn that down. But other than circumstances like that where you just have like low-hanging fruit to go and get that kind of make you digress and go down a rabbit trail, you really can custom tailor this game to what you want to do. You want to make a trade route and just keep getting goods and selling them back and forth, you can do that. But then you can expect another player to say, well, that seems boring to me. I'm just going to shoot you and take your goods and become an outlaw, and then I'm going to go sell them, then I'm going to go shoot that guy over there. Or you can just say, well, I'm all about these missions. These mission cards are really cool. They're very diverse. I don't mind being someone who, shuttles passengers or then goes and tries to steal from another player. That seems cool to me. So you focus on that instead. There's the whole aspect of helping a stranded player, which is very thematic and very cool. And I love that they can't refuse you. I don't know. It's just great. It doesn't make a ton of sense, but it does. It is really cool. Wow. There's just a lot to this game. And, when you see it all laid out there, and when you first go into the rules, your first game of this is going to be a bit brutal. Because there is so much you can do and so many different things you can explain, and every individual path that you have to getting fame points needs its own explanation, and that can be overwhelming, even if you've read the entire rule book ahead of time, because you still need to explain this to everyone at the table. But once you get through that, and I do recommend that you do the starting game that they have listed in the rule book, once you get through that, the game just sings. It's very, very smooth and streamlined. Everything makes sense as to what you're doing. A lot of it just goes down to die rolls, which a lot of people are not going to like, but because of that, because it's a relatively simple system, you can focus on doing what you want to do and not worrying about, oh, that seems too complicated. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to do this easy thing over here. Everything is easy. Everything is intuitive. So you have all these different paths open to you, and you never feel like something is blocked off to you. If you don't want to do something, you don't have to do it, but it's not because the game is sort of making it too complicated. And I just really, really enjoy that. And I was able to play this game with people who wouldn't typically sit down for this type of big, lengthy Ameritrash game, and they still loved it because of how thematic it was and because of that sandbox style where they never felt boxed in. That was really cool. Building up your ship, having these different ships that come out and being able to outfit them in the way that pleases you. Like maybe you don't care about shields. To hell with that. I'm going to go for just flying as fast as possible, getting as many goods as possible, or maybe I'm going all on offense and you guys better watch out. That really makes people's faces light up. They're like, whoa, I can do all these different things. It's almost too many options when you think of it in that way. Now, if I can nitpick about the game here some more, one thing is that I would absolutely not recommend that you play this game with 5 players, ever. It's not that the game is bad when it's with 5 players. I played it with 5 players and it was still a lot of fun. But it's just too much downtime. If you can avoid it, don't do it. Because the time that you have between players' turns, even for people that are experienced with the game, is a lot. There's so many different options that you have that by necessity you're going to take a while on your turn, especially since the way that the system is set up, you can take as many actions as you want. You're only limited by really how far you want to go and how much energy you want to spend. That can lead to some very long turns where people do a lot of different things. That's one of the game's greatest strengths, but it's also a weakness for the people who are not currently taking their turn because they have to sit there and wait. And with 5 players, that's just exasperated. I really think that with 3 players, it works really well. That's surprising to me because a lot of games that have like a the minimum amount of players for a multiplayer game is usually not the best. For when I think of like Dead of Winter also has 3 to 5 player count, the same type of player count. I would never play that game with three players, but it works here. Same thing with like let's say Sheriff of Nottingham, 3 to 5 players. Don't play with 3, but for Zaya, I think it works pretty well. 4 players is also not too bad. I've played it with each of the 3 player counts, and it there are benefits to 5 players because it's more player interaction, but I think that that's offset by the downtime, and I don't think that it's really worth it in that regard, even with experienced players. And even with 3 players, you can still look at this being a longer game, but the good news is you can set how many victory points you want to end at. So if you want a shorter game, have a shorter game. I do think that somewhere around 8 to 10 is the best because that means the game is not going to be too long, but it's long enough that you can start doing really cool stuff like getting upgraded ships and really exploring all the different tiles, getting like trade routes set up, really interacting with the NPCs. The NPCs are okay. I could take or leave them. I've played with them and without them, and I never felt a significant reduction in the quality or improvement in the quality of the game if I left them out or put them in. They're just okay, but they are an interesting aspect. It does make you feel even more thematic that you have like the police and the merchant going through his trade route and all these different things. It felt cool. It was probably a little bit too fiddly and added too much because there's already so many things that you need to worry about in the game. but it's cool that they're there and that you have the option. I could personally take them or leave them. When you have a lower point count, getting back to that for a second, like in your starter game, you play up to 5 points. And for a starter game, that's fine. But when you have lower counts like that, you're really not going to feel the game open up. The first time that you buy a brand new ship, the tier 2 ship, it have 2 special abilities to work with and have so much more space to get different outfits, the game really starts to feel like a different, better game. And getting to that point is really a cool discovery. Man, I really can't say enough cool things about this game. This was really surprising to me. The reason I didn't back on Kickstarter was because I thought the hype was a bit much. It didn't really seem like my kind of game. It really is my kind of game. Thematic, light but still strategic. Tons of different options and variety. I never felt pigeonholed into one particular game path to go on. It didn't feel like there was a totally winning strategy. And even if there was, because of the randomness of the tiles coming out and because of the actions of the other players who you definitely cannot anticipate, it still felt fresh and new each time. And it didn't feel like there could be one overwhelmingly good strategy. It's still an Ameritrashy game for sure. There's going to be people who hate the luck aspect, who are not going to be willing to sit down for such a longish game, but still, it's very solid. I love all of I could just go on and on, so I probably won't do that. But Xayah, it's a bit expensive, but if you can manage it this holiday season, I would highly recommend it. It's definitely up there. If I had not already done my top 10 Kickstarter games list, this would be very high on that list. Look for it on all of my top lists going forward in the future. Xayah, Legends of a Drift System from Far Off Games, highest recommendation.